Today's a part two to what Dean and I started this past week in terms of, or this past month, I should say, in terms of how we align sales and marketing to be more of a force multiplier. And I'm going to get through a couple of these things really, really quickly. For those that don't know who we are, we're a marketing agency for the industry, and I point out and I emphasize here, like, we don't guess. Everything is done methodically, and it's based off of data from the power of our network. We've worked with hundreds of security companies. We've recently turned 15 years old, and it's one industry that we focus on, which is yours. And it looks like I made a mistake and I left that Y out there. And we serve that of the entire ecosystem, including alarm dealers, integrators, fire alarm companies, guard companies, and the vendors that support the channel. And how we help is to really help you build your brand, get found, making sure that we're driving inbound leads, and we help you to continue growing. Obviously, that's the whole purpose of today's discussion. And I believe that everyone here knows, in all caps, the Dean Belisle, my good friend here. But in the event that you don't, with Dean, he once again travels the country on many times on the jet, working with DMP's larger dealers as well as DMP's emerging dealers to help them manage that, but to help them more effectively in their sales process and things in that regard. And that's why I was so appreciative of Dean being willing to be on these two sessions, to be able to share insights that perhaps only DMP dealers know that he shares with them. But Dean, just in case there are a couple of individuals on today that don't know you, maybe you can just share a little bit of background on yourself. And also, please, if you're not connected with Dean, please scan this QR code and connect with Dean.
Hey, please do connect. I love engagement. I love sharing what I know. So, David, yes, at that point, second generation in the alarm industry, I grew up in the business. Had work boots on at 8 years old. My father didn't believe in apprentices. He believed in gophers. So you would go for this tool and go for that tool, help him pull wires, maybe indentured servitude a little bit. But grew up doing that. High school, university weekends and summers helping out with the family business installing. And then in junior year of university, discovered the business side. RMR was a relatively new concept at the time, and got very excited about it. So we started a new company. Name of the company was Act Now Alarm, like act now before it's too late. We became one of the top 5 dealers in Michigan in pretty much everything: intrusion, access control, video, commercial fire. I myself am certified in commercial fire. Did frontline sales for the 30 years we ran that company, had our own in-house central station. So I've basically got experience in every part of an operation with an alarm company, but I definitely gravitate towards leadership and sales. It's my favorite part. So to David's point, I've spent the last 8 years out in the real world working with dealers. I've been in thousands of dealers' offices and met their sales teams, their leadership, their technicians, and it's given me a wealth of knowledge. And I love sharing that. And that's part of what we're going to do today is, what I've seen, what I've done myself. You'll hear me use the collective we often enough. So when I say we, it means me along with a lot of others. A lot of those were mistakes that we learned by. It seems like for some reason we learn better from mistakes than we do from victories at times. So this will be a compilation of all that knowledge over 4 decades.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dean, and appreciate that. And to your point, this is not just coming from the vendor side and seeing things on a macro level, but you've been in the trenches. And to your point, we'll be speaking a little bit more in detail about that here over the next few minutes. So, with myself, if we are not connected, once again, please scan this QR code. I'd love to keep this conversation going. Like Dean, we're very omnipresent here at industry events. I've been very blessed to speak at many of our industry's biggest events. I am the co-founder of SD Marketing. We've been around for 15 years, and we work with security companies throughout, not just here within the U.S., but actually we have groups that we work with out of the U.S. as well. Dean had actually referenced, we were joking about this right before we got started, but, if you've not met Isabella, Isabella is who reaches out to each of you to make sure that you've got today's webinar on your calendar. So a big thank you, because 99.9999% of everyone is very kind to Isabella, and a big thanks for her. If you'd like to schedule a time to speak with us, you can use this QR code, but a big thanks. And also, Marketing Matters, which is the monthly column. I know I'm a huge advocate, and Dean, you're also a huge advocate on LinkedIn, but I will say this, it's a little bit controversial in terms of this month's column. Stop trying to be a LinkedIn influencer. I'd love for you to read that and provide some feedback on that. I also have a quick video that will be on some YouTube, and I think on like LinkedIn Shorts and things in that regard. But if you'd like to access that directly, you can use this QR code. And every month we happen to happen to author that of an article. This one was a fun one. So really quickly, I think I'd mentioned, we had been at industry events. Dean and I will be at industry events, and I believe many of you will be there as well. And I'll share with you really quickly why I'm going to be at ESX. And I tell you what, ESX is built by integrators, and it's for integrators, or that of alarm companies. And by the way, if you have not, because I'm going to get past this slide here in just a sec, if you've not registered, please use this QR code. It's literally in 2 weeks in Fort Worth. And I'll tell you what, it is one of the can't miss events for myself. And Dean, I don't want to speak for you, but I believe we're on the same page here. It's a great opportunity for us to get together, to actually have time to have meaningful conversations. And really, ESX is all about RMR, and RMR is the whole basis of that of our industry. There's a lot of big mega trends in our industry that we're talking about in terms of like AI and security. If you happen to be in a state where CEUs, like, because education is really big, CEUs you can receive there as well. And there's real networking and the trade show floor. I know, Dean, you'll be on the trade show floor. We'll be on the trade show floor. Come say hi to us. We'll do some selfies together. Love some of your feedback. Our booth is number 821. I'm going to really skip past this right now, but if you'd like to schedule a time with me, you can scan this QR code while at ESX in Irving. My business partner will be there, Alex, as well as our creative director, Chris, will be there as well. So love for you to say hi. If we're getting together, your first beer, your cocktail choice is on me. So looking forward to that. Really quickly, as we wrap this up, and then I'm going to stop sharing screens here shortly, a big, big, big thanks to that of our two sponsors, Recognize and that of NAPCO. Without Recognize and NAPCO, these wouldn't be possible. At ESX, you can visit Recognize at 312, booth 312. They're now part of the Voscorp family, which is significantly expanding that of their portfolio. And keep in mind, we all are involved in video surveillance. And with Recognize, there's a lot of really interesting things that have just been announced and things that will continue to be announced here in these coming few weeks and months in terms of things. But it's all about AI visual, and it's more of a platform in terms of AI visual verification and things in that regard. And there's a lot of opportunities to, once again, generate and build more RMR. And speaking of NAPCO, they'll be at booth 411. Look, I think everyone here is familiar with NAPCO, and if you are not, then you've been under a rock. They've been around since '69 for over 55 years, and I'll tell you what, you can literally, as you're seeing here, you can literally run your entire business on that of NAPCO. So big thanks. Lastly, on this front with Recognize and NAPCO, we've gotten some feedback from them, from not from each of you, but from some of you that have went to them at some of the recent events and that have shared thanks to them sponsoring this, because they're seeing the value in investing in education. And what I will ask, the only thing that I'll ask each of you is, as you see our good friends at NAPCO and Recognize, please thank them for sponsoring continue to be a value sponsor for that of our webinar series. So when we take a quick step back, in terms of the things that we established in our last month's session, we established that most security companies, when you take a look at sales and you take a look at marketing, whereas we should be together, we're really on two separate islands. And it's not just me, it's not just Dean or I saying that. The numbers, I'm going to actually share with you the results of a poll that we took last month. And why, right? We don't have shared data. We don't have like a shared what a lead definition is. And I'm going to say, not equally, if not more important, there isn't that feedback loop. That's really, really important. I'll share with you a quick story. I was just on in a meeting earlier this week, and someone that leads marketing for this group that I was speaking with, she actually does on occasion a few sales calls per month. And why? Because it's important for her to hear directly from that of the prospect's mouth in terms of things that are important. Being able to hear those, because those insights are invaluable. And we're going to get into a little bit more detail about that. And when you take into consideration what's the cost of this misalignment, it could potentially be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not even up to millions of dollars. And what's worse, what's the most worse, and I probably should have put this like in all caps, is a lot of it's mostly invisible. And that's a big problem. And keep in mind, what's happening is those services are still being fulfilled, but guess who they're being fulfilled by? Your competitors. So what we're not only losing that revenue, but we're fattening up that of our competitors. That's a double whammy. So, in today's discussion, we're going to get into more of the tactics. We're going to talk about how we harvest that of your existing customer base more in detail. And we're going to talk about more specifically about how to build a predictable new customer engine. And really quickly, I just, got a couple quick things, and we have 2 quick polls, and then we're going to shut the screen share off in terms of, so it'll just be Dean and I. And Dean, if you have any thoughts on this, feel free to interject in this. But we asked 4 questions. I'm just going to highlight really quickly 2. And one of them was, rank where most of your leads come from. And as we can appreciate, they're coming from word of mouth and referrals. Leads is strictly number 1 at nearly 2.7 ranked. And then whereas just a little over 1.5 is going to be leads that are generated by that of the sales team. And then direct marketing efforts is less than it's just over 0.5. And by the way, look, I know that our businesses are all built on word of mouth and referrals, and they're all built on sales, but keep in mind, this should technically be at the bottom. And Dean, once again, you may have some thoughts about this in just a sec. I'll finish up with, this should not go away. And as you are more effective with that of your sales team and with your technicians, in terms of repeat business, existing customers, word of mouth referrals, creating raving fans in terms of your customers, that should be stronger, but it should be all the way at the bottom, because your sales team and your marketing efforts should be driving the line. Sure. I don't know if Dean, if you want to add anything to this, that I can move on to next.
I agree completely with you, David. It's unfortunately for 60 years, I shouldn't say unfortunately, we've built the industry for over a 60-year period of time on referrals, but primarily on unsolicited referrals. We do an excellent job taking care of our clients, providing incredible service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We really do throw the passion into this business, and we've been successful as an industry because of it. However, do you have a plan to build your business from? And I agree with you, it's upside down. Rather than having referrals build our business, it should be the icing on the cake. We should be promoting our businesses, marketing our businesses, creating them and designing them that way. And the referrals are the icing on top, the freebies, where we really accelerate growth as opposed to just maintaining. And you'll see so many companies around the country, and you hit plateaus. You get to a certain size, whether it's 1,000 accounts or 2,000 or 10,000 accounts, where attrition starts to eat up the growth. So if you're relying on 300 referrals a year and you're losing 300 accounts a year to attrition, you're really standing still or treading water. So how do you take the approach to proactively create leads and sales from those leads? It's a challenge, but I agree with you completely. We're doing it upside down. And if we can reverse that, we can really accelerate growth in our companies.
100%, we're on the same page. And then just really quickly, one last one that we want to point out is how aligned are our sales and marketing efforts. And by the way, as a reminder, team, for those of us that this is the first time you've been in our webinar series, or we're not here last, this is real data that was shared by your colleagues and counterparts. So how aligned are sales and marketing efforts? And I got to tell you, if you look at this, nearly 4 out of 5 that answered this, and I'm talking about real individuals that are just like on today, answered that we're not aligned. Only 1 out of 5 is saying that, in fact, we are aligned. And this is why when we align, beautiful things happen. And we're going to talk, Dean and I will share some stories here. Before I move on, Dean, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Otherwise, we can move on.
I think a very strong point, David. I'm going to lean on you to answer this one a little bit later. But when you look at marketing and sales, I think a definition of marketing for our industry is in order. And I know you're going to come to that a little bit later. But when you look at marketing, is marketing to get brand awareness, to let people know you're out there, or do you want marketing to drive sales? And most of us in our industry don't have the budget for brand awareness. We're not McDonald's hamburgers where we just want to see the golden arches everywhere. We want to spend our dollars wisely and turn that into sales. So what does that look like? And part of it is generating the leads. Another part of it is actually making the sale. And I see that disconnect on the dealer side as well as the manufacturer. If you talk about making the sale, that sale is made by the dealer's salesperson. So your salespeople at the front line, they make the sale. So what are we doing from a marketing effort to help them make the sale? Are we providing them with apps that help close it, to help design the system and price it out? Are we designing, do we have presentations for them? Or do we let them go out there and just wing it on a regular basis and hope they have the personality to make the sale? So when I look at marketing, I look at it from two standpoints. How do we drive the lead? And then how do we close the sale?
And the excellent, Dean, and very well said. The short answer is it's both. But to your point, I'll be much more explanatory, much more detailed about that here in just a few minutes. So we have two quick questions that we'd like to share with, or that we'd like to ask everyone. So if you can, now is the time where phones are required, not optional. So if you can scan the QR code here, and the question is once again, when was the last time you proactively reached out to an existing customer? Not for service, not for billing. When was the last time you proactively reached out to one? Within the last month, 1 to 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 6 months, or you honestly can't remember?
And you all can be very honest. We all know the answer already, but it is very helpful to see it in print, so to speak.
And by the way, to Dean's point, just in case for those that this is the first time, Dean nor I, we do not know who has answered what. This is all anonymous. And to Dean's point, if you can answer this honestly, because number one, as we're answering these questions, we want to see not just like take a look at how when did you answer? Excuse me, how did you answer? And then how do you compare versus that of your peers? And keep in mind, if we take a look at who's here today, I don't know everyone, but those of you that I do know, we've got a good mix. Mostly on the dealer integrator side, and we do have a few on the on that of the consultant, on the monitoring center, on the hardware manufacturer, so on and so forth. So, keep all these things in mind, and we'll leave this up just for another minute or so, for another few seconds, and then we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so let's move on to that of the, okay, so it's once again, honestly, I can't remember, or within the last month. Okay, you know what, we'll give this just another 5 seconds or so. Okay, so it's 2/3 here, then, okay, gotcha. So this will be helpful as we're speaking about things here shortly. Okay, we have this is the last question, and it seems like many of us have already answered this. So do you have a system for your technicians? Do you have a system for your technicians to flag sales opportunities they spot in the field? Is it informal? Is it no system at all? We don't have technicians, or yes, we do have a formal system. So we'll give this just another moment or so.
Thank you for filling out the polls. It's very helpful to see where we're standing.
So we'll give this just another 5 seconds or so. Do you have a system for your technicians to flag sales opportunities? And by the way, these are ironically some of, this will be one of the things that Dean talks about here shortly. So, okay, perfect. So we've got, just no system at all and informal. Okay, so there's room for opportunity. So, okay, let me stop sharing my screen. And so this is where, once again, we're going to, Dean, I'd like to start off we'll start off with just some, just some back and forth engagement. I just want to remind everyone, if you have any specific questions or questions based on the things that Dean or I share, you can ask them in the chat. If you're okay with everyone knowing your name, you can send this to everyone. If you only want the question asked, but not for us to repeat your name, or not for everyone to see who asked that question, make sure you send that to host and panelists. So Dean, when we take a look at last month in terms of part one, we ended on like one of the most powerful things that we discussed the whole hour was like there's gold, and I know we just ironically we're just talking about that here over the last couple of minutes. Like there's gold sitting right inside that of the existing customer base, meaning our existing customer. And look, could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday mornings. You've got maybe you can talk a little bit about like what you had mentioned that like if you take into consideration even just like 3 days a week, and you've got a number of appointments, you talked about how there's potentially 144 plus visits a year. And let's pick up where we left off. Like walk our audience through how those revisit conversations actually look from the dealers who do this well, and and we can proceed from there.
All right, let's do a quick overview on that one, David. So the dealers that do it well are less than 5%. The majority of our industry, and legitimately, we're very busy. There's demand for our services. We're 24 hours a day, 7 day a week operation. We're very busy. And you'll hear your salespeople tell you how busy they are running leads. They don't have time to go back and visit older clients that have a very remote chance of ever buying anything new. They've already bought your services. I'm not going to get a whole lot of money out of them. We look at it from a leadership standpoint that we should visit our clients. We should have constant contact with them, make sure that they have everything they need. But it tends to fall off because it's not profit driven at that point. So typically we see them, back to your polling question, when we send them an invoice, when we send the police to their home or their business, when we go for a service call, pretty much all negative, not a whole lot of positive interaction there. So when you look at some of the numbers, they're staggering. The number one reason people leave an existing service provider is due to perceived indifference. That's 68% of those that leave an existing provider is due to perceived indifference. My company doesn't care about me. So when the competition knocks on the door and shows some love, they've got a very high likelihood they can take over your client. Now, one thing we have are monitoring and service agreements in place that do slow the process down and give us sort of a second chance to make amends with those clients. But I would encourage you not to rely on that. If we can get more proactive and go and visit them. So to your question, David, what does that look like? And another part of it is, what do we get out of it? You know, there's give and get. What are you giving to get? And I always believe in sales, that is one of the golden rules. You give first, you get second, or give first and ask second. So what do we give those clients? To me, it should look very much like a customer service visit and not a sales call and not a service visit. So you're going to go see that client, let's say it on an annual basis. You're going to make an appointment. You're going to drop by. Your sales rep, let's say, or your customer service rep is going to bring the call list, the user list, and the zone list. The things our clients never look at, never update. We've all got that client where John Smith is user 5 and John Smith hasn't worked in that company for 3 years, but yet there's 6 other people using user 5's code, all under John Smith. We're security and life safety. That's probably not high security if we gave them individual codes in the first place to track who's coming and going in their business. So it benefits us to have that visit, to be proactive. And we have to teach our people, whoever's going out there, typically it's going to be a salesperson, that this is not a sales call. This is customer service. At least 95% of it's customer service. We're out there to make sure that our existing client is cared for properly. And when done properly, it turns into a sales call automatically. So what I mean by that is 30% of our clients only have one system from us. And let's say that's typically intrusion. So we go out and visit that client and they have one system. As we're going through the system, we're going to take a visual inspection. I'm not talking about getting on a ladder and pulling out your screwdriver to do anything other than look. But how many things we can see just by a visit, even a novice salesperson. If there's a motion that you're hanging by its wire and not screwed in properly to the wall, that probably indicates it needs a service call. If they put up a wall in front of a motion detector or a glass brick that wasn't there the day we installed, probably needs to be addressed. There's all sorts of things, spider webs, balloons floating, banners hanging in front of motion detectors. We can see those things. So a visual inspection by the salesperson goes a long way towards providing that service to the client. So they're going to do a visual inspection of the intrusion system. They're going to do a walkthrough of the building, make sure it meets all their needs, ask some intelligent questions. Maybe time for an area or a partition. Maybe it's a case where under HIPAA laws, they need to now protect their data in their file room in a doctor's office. Or maybe it's a warehouse in an office and they would prefer not to have the warehouse guys up in the front office on Saturday afternoon, undetected, roaming through payroll records and phone messages. We can do that with a partition, and maybe that's worth an extra 50% in the RMR. There's a lot of things that will be uncovered if we do it as customer service. We've got forms. I'm happy to share them with our group today. And it's designed to go either on a tablet or on a clipboard. So you walk it through as a professional and you're going through the intrusion. When you're done with that, it immediately looks at access control. Oh, David, you don't have access control. Have you considered that? Here would be some of the benefits. As we were walking around, you told me that this was a problem. Your people coming in and out of this door or propping this door open, you mentioned that was a concern. This is a way we could resolve that. We're walking through with cameras. It's the same conversation. Have you ever thought about putting cameras? Or I see your cameras look a little long in the tooth. It may be time to look at upgrading. Are you comfortable with how your search functions are when you have a problem? Does it tie into your alarm? When the alarm goes off, do you get video? Or do you just get a blind dispatch notice that something may have happened and you can't see it? These all come up naturally in conversation. So that when we talk to that salesperson that's going to go out, they have to be coached and cajoled into understanding customer service. We're there to give benefit and service to our client. And in return, a sales opportunity will arise. Now, how do you do that? Your salespeople are going to tell you how busy they are. They don't have time to do this. It's very, very straightforward. For me, depending on the size of your account base and how many times you want to see your clients, you take, let's say, 20% of your commercial clients, the ones that have the most potential for growth, the most important ones to you in value, whether that's RMR or install or service revenue, and you categorize them. They're number one. You're going to see them at least once a year, maybe more. You've got a second tier is another 40% where you're going to see them, maybe it's every other year or once a year, depending on how your cadence works. And there's some you're only going to get to every other year, and that's okay. Rather than not doing it at all, prioritizing at least gets us started. And then every day, what that looks like, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, your sales reps are all visiting one existing client. It's how they start their day. They can schedule it 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks in advance. And it's going to be a health check. You're just coming out to check on your client, not a sales call. Just want to make sure we're taking care of you. And now you're planned out. If you've got a salesperson doing that 12 times a month, as David says, 144 times a year. If you have 5 salespeople, you're talking about 800 visits a year, basically. It's not that hard. We just have to hit base hits with it. Now, here's what happens in the real world. The first time we do this, we go out there and we open up Pandora's box, or it's a can of worms. We show up, they're like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're here. We have all these problems I need you to fix. And if it's your salesperson, they are not happy. That will happen, but it won't happen every time. For some reason, it seems to happen the first time, every time. But what will happen is you'll have very good visits. A third of them will just be a conversation where you provide great service and benefit to your clients. A third of them will turn into a sale. Increased recurring revenue, additional systems, it's all out there for the taking. And if you want specific examples, my line of thinking, every home and business that's one of our clients should have water leak detection. We sell people security because they get broken into once in a while. They have a 1 in 15 chance of a break-in. They have a 1 in 4 chance of a flood. It's the most common, highest value insurance claim in America today are water leaks in homes and businesses. We've got wireless devices that take 5 minutes to install that can increase your recurring revenue by 20%, 50%, 100%. They're all out there for the taking, just to add to an existing system you already have. So on that wellness visit, it's a great question to ask. Do you have any concern over having your business closed for the next 3 weeks due to an $8 water line that broke on the back of your kitchen sink? Very straightforward.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dean, there was absolute gold that you just shared. And I hope that everyone's really paying attention, because these things, remember, it's like tiny hinges swing big doors, and it's all these little things. I want to add really quickly a marketing layer to what you just shared. And by the way, what I'm about to share, this is not meant to replace. This is meant to augment what Dean just shared. Imagine what Dean just shared about having natural, free-flowing customer service conversations. But instead of doing this one-to-one, doing this one-to-many. And what I mean by that, this is where I don't get as much of a hard time in 2026 as I did 15 years ago when we first started. But it's critical to communicate with your customers in your market, your existing, not just with prospects. We're going to get to new prospects here in just a sec. And where I'm going with this is the stories that Dean just shared, some of these tactics, talking about, we just got back from ISC West. We just got back from our state show. We just, met with some of our leading technology providers. We've got new innovative things. Keep in mind, many of us offer many different things, but on the average, and Dean, you may know the answer to this better than do I, but on the average, let's just say if we're offering 7 or 8, call it different solutions, perhaps only 1 or 1.5 solutions is the average of what our customers are doing. The key here is, attrition is the dirty word in our industry. And as we layer more services, as we deliver more value, not only do we generate more RMR, but we lower the attrition. And where I'm going with this, just to make this long story short, is leverage your marketing. Make sure that you've got everyone's email addresses. If you're still sending out that of paper invoices, if you are, because I know we still are, unfortunately. There are many that are, and that's a whole other conversation for a different day. Have information that's not just, here's a coupon, come buy from me, but ask the question, interested in new cameras, interested in this. Dean made a great point about the water detection, like all of these kinds of sensors, layering things. If we don't ask, we don't receive, because the whole point is, whether it's your sales team or whether it's a technician, wouldn't it be great if your end user customers are actually, before you offer these things, they're asking, hey, I received an email about you, or I got your invoice about this. Tell me a little bit more about that. These things can happen. And the key is to have it done in a way that's not super salesy, but it's more conversational, more of that customer service, more, just educational, making sure that we're top of mind. We briefly touched base on this last month. Whereas how many times have we been coming or going, and all of a sudden a competitor's coming or going? It's a punch in the gut when they say, Dean or Dave, I'm sorry, I know we're friends. I didn't know you did that. That's a punch in the gut. Dean.
Well, that is the age-old one. And if everyone were here, we could hear the laughter in the background. And it's always sort of a nervous laughter. But, I ask the question in training all the time. Have you ever gone back to see your client and they bought a camera system from somebody else, or an access control system from somebody else? And when you ask them why, it is exactly what you said. Like, I didn't know you guys did access control. And if you think about it, it's on your truck. It's on your business card. It's on your letterhead. It's on your website. You told them when you were out there. It's probably on the proposal you gave them the first time. But they called you for a specific person or a specific reason 3 years ago. And it was probably for an intrusion system or a camera system. Check the box. You provided the service. Why would they ever think you do something else? What would be the front of mind, the presence? We may think back, well, I get an invoice from you every 3 months, so you should remember that I do these things. Again, that's negative, not positive. Our service technicians, a lot of people claim that our service techs are our best salespeople. And I'm not a believer in that. I think, and it's semantics, I think they're our most effective salespeople because the end users trust them. They're a trusted advisor. Whereas salespeople, we have to earn that trust. Technicians are given that trust. So they're very effective, but they're not very good at it. And they typically won't offer additional services. So your service tech might see them 3 times in a year, but is your service tech really talking about water leak detection or adding a camera? Odds are no. And that's for most of our companies. So when you talk about that, David, you all will probably get a feel. You see that I'm more, there was a book I read 30 years ago called Guerrilla Marketing, and I took it to heart. So I do the grassroots guerrilla marketing, what I have within my power, within my budget. But the next layer is the professional marketer, David. And I consider David and his type hired guns. I'm going to go out and pay them for their expertise and their knowledge and what they can do for me that I can't do for myself. And it's not an either or, it's a balance. So to your point, David, yeah, we need to take the high level. If we can do mailers and webinars and social media posts that talk about water leak detection, the need for it, and build the awareness, fairly inexpensive, but on a repetitive basis, you get the awareness out. But that doesn't mean they're going to pick up the phone and call you or respond to that actual post. You may actually have to show up at their door. But if you think about putting those two together, you're sort of seeding the field. If they've heard about water leak from you for the last year, and all of a sudden your person shows up to provide them a wellness visit, and they ask if you're concerned about water leak, you're probably going to say, yeah, I have been thinking, it's been on my mind. What can you do for me? So you've hand delivered the solution. So again, it's not an either or, it's a combined effort. And that's how we get successful. The last thing I'd like to point out on that existing client base, because it's so big, if you were to buy a marketing list, it would cost you a fortune and it would be mediocre at best. You have 1,000 or 5,000 or 20,000 clients that know you, that probably like you and have enjoyed the business relationship, but they don't think about you, because why would they? Until you wake them up at 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, and tell them the alarm's going off, but you don't know why, or you send them a bill or a late charge. That's the only time they hear from us. So it would be more proactive. So another stat, and the numbers fascinate me. Your existing clients are 60 to 70% more likely to buy an additional service from you. Now, if you compare that to someone who doesn't know you making a first sale, it's 5 to 25%. Those are staggering numbers. And yet, for most of us, and again, this is that collective we, including myself, in many cases, we let those clients sit out there and marinate, and we don't talk to them. And we chase down the 5 to 25% chance of making a new sale to a new client. Now, in the old days, I was far more forgiving, because to go out and sell somebody a water leak sensor, but I don't get any more RMR, that didn't get me excited. This is an RMR business. But today, those added services generate revenue. If I'm charging a business $50 a month and I can go sell them water for $10 or $20 a month, that's a big hit. And I would dare any of you to try and raise that client by $20 a month for standard monitoring. It probably is going to cause some issues, probably likely leading to attrition. But if you add additional benefit, additional services, you'll find that it works out quite well.
100%. And those numbers that you're sharing are staggering. And we're definitely 100% on the same page. So I know we've spent these last few minutes talking, Dean, about the goldmine in terms of our existing customer base. Let's talk now. Let's transition towards new prospects, because clearly, as I speak with individuals on a one-on-one basis, and it's also indicated in the numbers that we just showed a few minutes ago when we showcased the numbers from this past month. It's like most security companies, and I mean this with respect, but like they're waiting on referrals. And if you think about that, it's doing this. And I know we've all experienced that. And the problem is, like, our bills don't do this, our expenses don't do this. Like, yeah, wish that was the case. It's like they're always there. The members of our employees expect to be paid as they should be every single month. So, you and I, as we were prepping for this, you shared a story that I'd like for you to share the story in terms of like predictability. And this goes way back to your security company days. Like, share with me a little bit about in terms of predictability and how that helped to change everything for you in that of your company.
Oh, happy to, David. So, like many of you out on the call today, we were relying on referrals. And when we first got started, we got a lot of referrals. We do, when we were small and really started off with no clients, we would do 100 or 200 or 300 installs a year, all on referrals. And it was great. And as we grow, we did hit those plateaus. So let's say for numbers, if I'm at 1,000 monitored accounts, I've got a nice company with a nice base, and I'm installing 200 new systems a year. That's great. But if my attrition is, let's say 10% for round number, that means I lost 100 accounts last year. So I put on 200, I lost 100. I didn't really increase by 200 accounts. I increased by 100 accounts, half of what I thought I increased by. And the larger I get, the more attrition eats up. So if I'm now up to 10,000 accounts, and I'm still only putting on 200 new accounts a year, but my attrition's at 10%, I'm losing 1,000 accounts and I'm putting on 200. I have negative growth. So you could argue that the bigger you are, the more referrals you get. There is some benefit in that. However, I have no control over that. Those referrals come when they feel like coming. And if you think about it, most of the sales in our industry are life event driven. So in a business, they either opened up, or they changed management, or they had a problem with the existing company, because 85% of businesses already have a security system. They may not have cameras and access, but they do have a burglar alarm. So for them to change that service, why? Something happened. Probably not a good event, but definitely a life event. So how do we market and be there when they need us? So referrals sort of fill that gap. When they're not happy, they ask a colleague or a friend or a neighbor who they use and if they can trust them. And we get a referral, and it gives us an opportunity. But we had no control over that. We've done our job every day, and it's a byproduct as opposed to an effort. So we learned when the internet became more powerful, search engine optimization, the SEO, we discovered magic. And it was like lightning striking, basically. So I knew that for a certain spend, let's say that was $2,000 a month, I knew that I would get 20 good leads and I could convert 7 of them into a sale. Now, when I say good leads, like you, when I get a referral, it's usually a very solid prospect. It doesn't mean 100% I'm going to get them. It doesn't mean they weren't referred to 3 companies at the same time, but it's a very warm lead. They know something about me and my company, and they have trust when we first sit down, as opposed to walking in a cold call where they have no idea who we are and what we do. I found that the SEO were as good as a referral, if not better. And what I found is that when they found us through our marketing efforts, it would lead them to our website. They would do their research. When I spoke to them, they'd already decided they wanted to do business with someone like me. And as long as I didn't mess it up, it was probably going to be me. So they were very warm leads. And if you look into if you sort of uncover the bigger picture, we all struggle with some of the same issues. If I'm going to hire a new salesperson and I'm going to expect them to do 10 sales or 20 sales a month, I probably need another technician or 2 to do the installs to go with that. So chicken and egg, do I hire the technician, which is going to take me 6 months or a year to get trained up where I trust them to do an install, and have them on the payroll paying them with no added revenue to get them prepared? Or do I hire the salesperson first, generate sales, and we just kind of try and keep up best we can until we get the sales moving, and then hire a technician and wait 6 months till they can help us out? So I call it leapfrog. So which way do I go? So when I actually discovered how I could take charge of the marketing efforts and produce those quality leads and have metrics telling me how much dollar spend would generate how many good qualified leads, which would tell me how many salespeople I need to run those leads, and then how many specific sales those would turn into. That told me how many technicians I need. For the first time in my career, I had control over my operation in that area. I could focus on how many leads I needed, how many sales I wanted, how many technicians and salespeople I needed to make that happen. It really was like lightning striking. It was magic, and it changed everything. Now, I'd love to tell you that I was really good at the SEO and I could figure that all out. And I could keep up every time Google changed their back end metrics and all of that and the algorithms. I'm not. I was horrible at that. And I had spurts. I had about 18 months where it was magic and it worked great. I had another 8 months where it was miserable because Google changed their analytics and it all dried up. And it took that long to figure out how to get back on track. We actually had to change our marketing firm to get back on track. So when I talk about hired gun in those areas, I don't even flinch to hire a hired gun like David because I don't know that. And frankly, I don't want to. That's not my passion or my forte. How's that for a long-winded answer to an easy question, David?
That's a great answer because it's all, look, the devil's in the details and it's all about the details. Because remember, with what you referenced, and by the way, thank you for the kind words as always. Appreciate that. But where I'm going with this is knowing that the challenge is it's all referrals, which means we're doing this, knowing that our expenses are consistent, perhaps going up. The chicken or the egg, as you mentioned, in terms of do I hire the next technician? Like, how do we proceed accordingly? It's critical. And I'm going to be really brief about this. But when, you'd referenced SEO. SEO is still a thing, but SEO is now search everywhere optimization, which includes the answer engines, the ChatGPTs, the Perplexities, the Claudes of the world. But there's so many other things. Like there's digital ads. Like on our website, we've got master classes on each of these specific topics to do deep dives into these. But it is critical to be diverse, to make sure that you're focused, like your ads, because I think you'd reference this. One of the reasons why SEO converts at a very high and why search converts very high is because it's inbound. In other words, I shouldn't say inbound, it's more in market, I should say. It's inbound as well. But it's in market, meaning this is someone that doesn't necessarily know, Dean doesn't know you by name or your company by name, but they have the need for what you do at that exact moment and geographically in your area.
We'll say that again, if you would, David, because you cannot overestimate that. We operate on life events. So when you need me, can I be there and present my message at the exact moment you need me, or am I going to miss it by a day?
And this is where you cannot be invisible, especially when our prospects in our primary service area are searching for us. That is going to be in Google in terms of LSA, the local service ads, which is pay per lead. That's Google Ads pay per click. And then that SEO area, specifically on Google, that's going to be within the maps in your Google business profile. There's no cost for that. It requires and once again, I have 2 or 3 sessions that are hour-long sessions specifically on that, as well as making sure that you're optimizing your website. And to Dean's point, you can technically do this yourself, or you can work with a third party or work with a third-party service provider to help with that. So, I know that we're running a little low on time, so I'm going to move on, Dean, to the next question.
Hey, David, I'd love to give the audience one gift.
Yes, please.
And it's really just another example. When we talk about the combination of what you can do, ground effort, grassroots, producing leads and sales on your own, and then hiring a hired gun like David and taking a professional approach and having control over it, these are critical aspects, and you need both. The one gift I'd like to give to you is that we squander our marketing dollars. I don't care how you're doing this. We squander them because what we do is we go after that first lead and we go after making the sale. And if we don't get the sale, we quit. And if we get the sale, we quit. If we could take that to the next level, and again, we can hire a hired gun to take us to the next level. Why do we stop? Because we made the sale, we know that person's interested in security or life safety, and they know they now like us. We have a relationship. Why do we stop? There's chances to go back to the well and add recurring revenue and add systems and installation, always. And then the ones we don't get, if you've got, say it's a closing ratio of 50%. So you've got a salesperson that makes 100 sales this year. That means they did not make 100 other sales. And if those people were very interested in your products and services, it means they went to a competitor. We lost them. And then we just wash our hands and ignore that they even exist on this planet for the rest of our professional career. And I would just ask you, why do we do that? Those are leads that have an interest. And there's a lot of you out there in the call that you're better than your competitor. You weren't able to convince the prospect for some reason. But how many times do they buy from a competitor and there's buyer remorse within days, weeks, the first year? Now we have those monitoring agreements in the way. They can't just leave anytime they want, but we know in 2 or 3 years they can leave. But we've never gone back. We gave them a shot. They didn't pick us. Our relationship's over. Why does it have to be over? It costs us virtually nothing to stay in contact with them, whether it's email or it's posting and messaging. We can stay in contact with them. We can develop that relationship. I would say, especially if they're buying from a larger company that has if you've got an attrition rate of, let's say 10 or 12%, and they've got 100,000 monitored clients, they're shedding 12,000 clients a year that probably are going somewhere else for security. Well, what if you had lost to that company? And now it's 2 years later, they're not all that happy with the service they're getting. They're maybe some buyer remorse. Maybe they really did like you, but they aren't thinking about you anymore. What if you kept the messaging going? So now when they found out they thought they were buying this level of security, they got this level of security. Let's see, get on the screen like that. Well, there's a big gap there. If they know you're still out there and you're still a solution and you still want to do business with them, they're probably going to give you a second chance. So we tend to take one shot at the new sale and never take a second shot at that existing client base or prospect base.
And, Dean, words of wisdom, you earlier in today's discussion, you mentioned I'm going to add a third layer to that, trust. And where I'm going with this is because most prospects, most businesses, most residential end users, they're not actively searching for what we do. And the key here is going through that continual, indefinitely in that journey to build that know, like, and trustability. And it's done via a number of channels. It's not just email. It can be social. It can be, I love the fact that you brought up webinars. We're huge proponents, obviously, hence today. And by the way, team, like webinars are not just on the vendor to dealer channel. Like when's the last time, like I'm going to bring something up too. What about podcasts? Like podcast is the new blog. Like, Dean, you may have some things to add to this in just a sec, but like, do things differently. It's all about getting your company, like humanizing your security company, getting the good news out, being known, liked, and trusted as that local security liaison. Because once again, as you have someone that comes or goes from a competitor, instead of them going to Google, instead of them asking for a referral, we want them to come to us. Dean, I think you were going to say something else as well.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, think about a podcast that costs nothing. And if you have 1,000 clients, that's a warm, friendly audience, easy to get to, easy to promote it. If you got 50 of them to show up on a monthly or a quarterly podcast where you could share or remind them of the things you do. So let's say you did it for your commercial businesses and most of them only have an intrusion system. You can start talking about what an access control system is, not the pieces and parts, but what it does for them. And maybe to me, I would have an interview. I'd bring one of my clients on who had an issue. They called on us. We solved their problem and let them tell the benefits of that system and why, and then let the audience come into it. Can you imagine the power that has rather than just sending out a mailer that says, hey, we do access control?
It is huge. It's significant. Remember, who else is doing it? Next to no one. And it's not because it doesn't work. And by the way, many of us may be thinking, oh, Dean, Dave, this all sounds great, but what content do I have to be sharing? Keep in mind, today's discussion can very easily be recorded. It is being recorded. It can be transcribed. That context can be used as a basis for social media posts, for long form blogs, for information that's shared. And to Dean's point, what's brilliant about interviewing that of your existing customer base, let's say, for example, you focus on certain key vertical markets within your area, or perhaps you don't. You want to interview individuals that are known, liked, and trusted in your community, because once again, what that does, it's okay. Let's just say, Dean, if you're one of our customers, and by the way, that's not the case. Dean and I are good friends. We do work with many DMP dealers, but that's besides the point. But my point is, let's say that hypothetically you were one of our customers it's okay for you to share all of the great insights about us. It's kind of self-serving if I'm speaking about myself, if that makes sense. And to your point, let's say I'm interviewing or vice versa, you're interviewing me, you're asking questions in terms of what are the challenges? What are the focus? And like you said, the systems of today, and obviously DMP, you do a great job of that, are all integrated. It gives you, it's like video beyond surveillance. When you integrate access control and video together, you can do beautiful things. You can share data and insights, not that are just about security, but you can get into things that are operation, even marketing budgets, which are much bigger and things in that regard. So I know, Dean, you may have a few things you want to add to this, but I love this.
Well, I mean, you think about it, depending on your generation, Johnny Carson, Jimmy Kimmel, we watch these shows on television because we love the banter and the conversation, and some are better than others. We watch Joe Rogan on podcasts because we like the conversation. Why can't we do that? Be your own, Jimmy Kimmel, be your own Johnny Carson. Have fun with your clients, your audience. Let your clients speak to your clients and your prospects. It is powerful. I think that's genius, David. The one thing I'd encourage the audience, I can't say this enough, is every time that we or our sales team are about to open our mouth, we should have a question go through our head that is, why do I care? Meaning, whoever your audience is, your prospect, why do they care about what you're going to say? When I tell you about this great access control system, the 734 part number, it'll handle 10,000 users and do this and this and this, why do I care? Well, you care because you don't want the guys in the shop going up in the office on Saturday afternoon roaming through payroll records. That's why you care. You don't care how many codes it has, how it functions, if it's a circuit board, don't care. I don't care if it's access control or a swipey thing or a burglar alarm. I care about what it does for me. And it's going to be different for your audiences. So in that line, any of your marketing, your podcast, the question has to be answered to your audience. Why do they care about what you're about to say? If you don't answer that, you don't have to say anything, just stay quiet.
And Dean, once again, these are golden nuggets. And I will share you what, team is, rather than us moving on to other things, because I know we're low on time. I wanted to get deeper, and I think it's better for us to get deeper into this because there's actionable takeaways from this. There's an article that I wrote, and we're always like 2 or 3 months ahead. So I don't recall, I think it's an upcoming article in Security Business Magazine where I get a little bit deeper into this, or maybe it's one that just passed. But keep in mind, when you're having these discussions, whether it's sales, whether it's that of your technicians, as you're having, remember, it's all about stories. Like, I know that perhaps most, if not some of us, are not great writers, and it takes that's not our area of expertise. And I don't write, literally record yourself. There are free tools. There are tools that are very low cost where you can record your conversation. It can be transcribed. Whether you're using AI or whether you're using it as the basis to help you write things with that proper context, it puts you in a position so that you have an infinite amount of not blah, 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 blah garbage, but you have things that are actually useful, things that your existing customers and prospects, because you're going to be doing things differently. Keep in mind the things that we're discussing today. This isn't like 101, 102, 102. These are 104, 105. I'm not saying that these things are easy things that you can get done, but it does not require a tremendous amount of dollars, the things that we're discussing. These things can put you in a next level in a way that, the nationals, they're not going to be able to compete with you. Remember, it's all about the stories. And I know that I've repeated myself and I say this often, but I'm telling you, if I can embed know, like, and trust, and the things that Dean is sharing, these things are critical. Dean, I don't know if you want to add any, I know we only have just a few minutes. If anyone has any questions, we could address them. If you want to add, maybe some final words or things that we didn't cover that you'd like to share over these last couple of minutes, or if you want to add on what the things that I've just shared, that would be great.
Yeah, you get it. It's repetitive, and repetition helps. It's not a one solution fix. It's all encompassing. You've got to have your salespeople on the front line doing their job. They are the ones making the sale. We've got to provide them with the marketing tools to make them as effective as they possibly can. And if you think about it, if you have one salesperson, you're hiring this heroic effort, you're counting on their personality, their work ethic. But how do you make 10 of those people? And that's a system. So to systematize it, you have to have a process. You have to have a script. You have to have the tools. How do we get those? And David's one of the people that can help. So hired gun. You can do it yourself. I mean, everything we talked about, that you can do it yourself. But at some point, where's the expertise? How much time do you have? I'm really good in front of people. It's where I really prefer to be. It's where I think I do my most effective work. So I try to spend as little time as possible in the back room trying to make marketing literature. Now, sometimes I have to just by need. No one else can do it. I don't have time to do it. So that's great. But all encompassing. So you need to have your sales team set up for success on the front line and then backing all the way through that. How did you generate the lead to get there? If it was a referral, great, but that should be icing. How many of those leads that that salesperson has came from their own efforts or from the company's efforts? And how did you get them? That should be a 10 to 1. Right now, it's probably a 1 to 10 ratio. 10 referrals for every one we created, 10 unsolicited referrals for every one we create. We need to reverse that. 10 that we generate on our own, and then the icing on the cake is that extra 10 or 20% of sales that came in because we're so good at what we do. That's how we get to growth.
And, Dean, I want to add, just as we're wrapping up here, one or two quick things that I didn't intend to share, but you brought up some interest. You reminded me of something. Look, clearly we love, anyone that is interested in having conversations. We'd love to have some conversations with you in terms of how we can help. But, but take that out of the equation. Lean on your vendors in terms of certain key elements, and they've got, many of your vendors will have marketing materials for you. Sure, it's going to be branded, co-branded with with their branding, and it's going to be based on what they do and things in that regard. But what the other thing that I was going to mention, and I say this because it's not too late. We're now, if you're on live, it's in the middle of May. There are many of the vendors that do what's referred to as MDU, or marketing development funds. So what that means is a percentage of your spend with them is eligible to be reimbursed at a certain percentage on qualified marketing activities. And you wouldn't be surprised when I have these conversations in Q4 and Q1. It's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I had $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 plus in eligible MDU that I did, that just went off and I say this, these are some of the things that we're working with some of the technology partners that we work with, to help their channel grow their business. So I challenge you. I'm not saying every technology partner does this, but many of them do ask. And the ones that do have a plan, make sure that you're spending that and you're spending it wisely and things in that regard. So one thing that I want to share really quick, and I'm just going to bear with me for just a sec. I want to just, let's go here. I'll quickly share my screen just for a last moment here as we are wrapping up. I know that we are just up against time. So I want to once again thank our sponsors out of NAPCO and Recognize. You see their booth numbers here, 411 and 312 at ESX. And I wanted to really quickly just announce next month's webinar. So, next month's webinar, I know today, ironically, today we talked a little bit about content creation. We're going to do a big deep dive into this and talk about that of content multiplication, a system that helps to fill your pipeline. It's going to take their place June 23rd, 10 o'clock Pacific time. Here's the QR code to register. So I'm going to keep that up for another, 3, 2, 1, and just thank everyone. I know we're up against the hour. I am Dean. This was a lot of fun. I would love for us to do this again sooner rather than later, and not just virtually, but also in person. Really, really appreciative, Dean. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. I don't know if you have any final words, and then we can wrap things up and get everyone back to their day.
I would just like to thank our audience. Thanks for joining us today. It wouldn't be any fun without you all being with us. And David, thanks for hosting us.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, have a, let's see, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. It's very kind of you for thanking Dean and I. As Dean mentioned, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. And please give a big thanks to Dean when you see him at ESX at upcoming events. I didn't have to pull too hard. He was very gracious and very, very appreciative. And thank you, Paula. Thank you, everyone that's sending notes. Very informative. Appreciate that. Thank you, David, as well. Once again, until next time, everyone, make it a great day.